children of day and night have always respected and despised each other. Their fights, which began in the age of myths, were transferred to humans, and they still continue in our time. Even the ugly villains who live in hell dream of heaven. The huge truck is stopped by brute force. This is done by a big man in the clothes of a buffoon. The police point their guns at the criminal, and the voice tells us that we are waiting for a terrible and exciting welcome to heaven. The fool takes to the sky. There's a huge ball under his feet. He announces the start of Ralph's show. The police shout for retreat, but the criminal comes down on them with his sword. This technique is called the death ball. Several police cars turn soft-boiled, and a clown comes out of the smoke unharmed. He notices that there is a great view ahead, while one of the surviving policemen points the muzzle of a gun in the direction of the criminal. His hand is shaking. It is clear that the man was badly injured from the blow. The clown is slightly surprised by this, but nothing more. He pulls a strange object out of his pocket that looks like on a bowling pin. The thing flies up in his hands. It sends out bolts of purple lightning. He notes that despite the lousy situation, there will always be some guys who have not yet figured out what's what. He throws the object in the direction of the surviving executive. This technique is called a mace shot. The clown turns around to continue his show. He has a devilish smile on his face. A powerful explosion is heard somewhere behind me. Meanwhile, several masked men rob a bank. One requires you to carry money. Another threatens an ordinary resident with a bullet to the head. The school bus is speeding somewhere. This gets the clown's attention. Meanwhile, the chief of the robbers, noticing the transport, announces that it's time to go home. Thieves run to the bus, but the road is blocked by a huge clown carcass. The criminal casually grabs a wad of money from a nearby bag, then inhales its smell. He finds it very sweet. Jester is already planning on using this money to fill Ralph Land with fear and dread. The clown notices that the robbers are running up to the bus. One of them knocks on the door, demanding to open it. The door opens. A man wearing a thief's mask is sitting on the driver's seat. The robber who has come running immediately has complaints about the door to the companion. The driver replies that the school bus is not a sports car. The doors on it open slowly. He also notices that the robber is holding the hand of a blonde woman who looks confused. The man explains with a nasty smile that this is a hostage. The driver turns his gaze to the second member of the squad, who is holding a small girl under his arm. He has a dumb question. Why do they need a child then? The second robber explains that the girl is the governor's daughter and the girl is her mother. For such hostages, they can demand an excellent ransom. Robbers enter the bus, as suddenly the woman begins to resist. She stops abruptly and falls to her knees, begging for her daughter to be released. The man just shuts her up, telling her to be quiet. The woman resists. She begins to reach out to the child who is calling her. The girl's name is Jessica. The robber who is holding the child demands her to be silent, otherwise he will do something bad. The driver intervenes in the disassembly. He gets up from his seat and demands to release the child. These words cause misunderstanding among his comrades. Because of the delay, they do not have time to react to the attack of a man in a thief mask, who grabs the head of the robber who was holding Jessica. He squeezes it hard, forcing the robber to his knees. The second robber throws the woman aside. He doesn't understand what their comrade is doing, so he intends to teach him a lesson. It turns out that there are people with special abilities in this world. They awaken them and commit crimes under the control of their own desires. Those who have Nightchild blood are called villains. The clown raises a gun to the sky, announcing that they are returning to start celebrating to the fullest. He wants to have a barbecue. The robbers are coming for him. They shout his name in unison. The carcass of one of Ralph's subordinates flies out of the bus. This confuses the head of the criminal gang. After that, a man wearing a thief's mask comes out of the bus door. He's dragging the carcass of another robber behind him. Out on the street, he throws a man over himself, letting everyone know that he is an enemy. Ralph doesn't like what's going on. He wants to know who decided to stop him. The hero also removes the mask, stating that he just came to take out the garbage. It turns out that in this world there are still people with super abilities who fight against villains. They stand on the side of society and receive the support of those who have the blood of the child of day. Such people are called Psykers. The guy's name is Cassian. The hero is happy that he saw Ralph, whom he did not meet for a whole year. The leader of the criminal gang is covered in a cold sweat. He recognizes his enemy and doesn't understand how Cassian ended up here. Meanwhile, a voice from the earpiece in his ear condemns Lee for such actions, because all this is no longer according to plan. The psyker simply burns it. Cassian declares that now he is ready to have fun, because no one will disturb them. Ralph looks on with horror in his eyes. You can see that the clown understands how small their chances of winning are. He is terrified to prepare to accept his fate. Lee keeps talking. He notices that after the battle it will not be possible to identify the bodies, because there will be nothing left of the robbers. Chapter 1. The weather is sunny outside. People are rushing about their business, and on the news they talk about recent events. The robbery, which took place a day earlier on South 5th Avenue, was criticized for using excessive force. The host reveals that the Human Rights Commission has officially requested Lampa's participation, stating that the first-rate psyker Cassian, who used ruthless violence, needs to be punished accordingly. Events are moved to Lampa's Washington office. A girl with red hair holds a report in her hands. She calmly sips her coffee cup. She is a psyker. Her name is Tufence Schiller. She turns to the hero with a question about whether he is a villain. Cassian insists that he would never get involved with villains in his life. The guy squeezes the cup in anger. The girl notes that her interlocutor does not think about the consequences at all. Tufence notices that because of the boy's disobedience, they missed Ralph. By doing so, Lee turned the public against the entire organization. The hero also recalls that they had hostages. He tries to justify his actions by the appearance of hostages, but the girl only states that this, on the contrary, should have made the hero act more cautiously. Schiller notes that the safety of hostages is a top priority. Cassian responds by saying that he was able to save them, but the interlocutor is not happy with these words. She claims that it also had to be done as a psyker, that is, the guy had to act rationally and calmly. The boss condemns the guy for rushing headlong into battle, completely forgetting about the plan and orders. The girl tries to point out to the other person what this ultimately led to. She notices that his actions are no different from those of the villains. The hero has nothing to say to this, and Tufence reminds the guy that she is on probation. She casually hints that if the guy messes up again, there will be serious consequences. Cassian leaves the girl's office, calling her a witch. He doesn't understand how Jeff got to be friends with Schiller. Lee decides that he needs to clear his head. At this point, his phone starts ringing. A call from Jeff. The hero picks up the phone, approaching the vending machine with drinks. Jeff asks the guy to come to Rhodes, Greece, right now. Part of the conversation is hidden to intrigue us. Cassian arrives in Greece. He sits down in a cafe on the street, orders a coffee, and waits for the arrival of a friend. The hero notes that he has many good memories thanks to Jeff. It had already been half a year since their last meeting. The guy plunges into his memories, the events of which unfold in the NS orphanage. Some of the children are surprised that toys can move. The black-haired boy is surprised that the toy is moving. The question of whether or not she's alive slips from his lips. The children are approached by a man who says that the toy is not alive, but it moves thanks to the strength of a person. The boy admires the strength of an adult. He still notes that the toy looks like it's alive. The child asks the man if he will become a psyker. Apparently, Dite admires the abilities of psykers because they kill villains and show them on TV. The man himself does not know the exact answer to the child's question. He thinks his power is useless enough. The boy also resists the opinion of the interlocutor, considering his strength cool. The hero also notes that these events were before the friend was adopted in the United States. Cassian notes that there really was a time when he didn't know any fears. He liked those times. Some time passes. It's getting dark outside. The sun is sinking below the horizon. The hero leaves the cafe. The time is 7:30 in the evening. The guy is a little confused as to why his friend is late. The hero calls a friend, but the latter does not pick up the phone. Cassian is a little confused by everything that's going on. Then Jeff appears behind him, calling his name. The guy looks around. He sees that his friend is in a serious condition. Jeff leans on Cassian. His hands are shaking. The hero is trying to find out what happened. He assumes that the comrade has encountered a strong villain. Jeff doesn't answer the guy's question. He just notes that he shouldn't have dragged his friend into everything that's going on. The hero believes that this is complete nonsense. The man gives Lee a strange locket. He wants the hero to take him. Cassian wants an explanation first. He's very worried about Jeff. The blonde tries to reassure his friend that everything is fine with him. At the same time, Jeff is very concerned about the fate of the necklace. The man's words are immediately refuted. He spits out a huge blood clot. The man shouts that there is no time for explanations. Jeff asks the hero to run away from here. He declares that if he does not have time to escape, he will also be in danger. Cassian doesn't understand what's going on. The guy thinks that his friend is starting to get delirious from blood loss. He just wants to call an ambulance to save a loved one. Then the hero notices that a masked man comes out of the shadows with a katana in his hand. Lee doesn't know who it is. Jeff pushes his friend away from him, then turns around to the unknown. The opponent had already unsheathed his katana, then made a quick cut. Drops of blood flew everywhere. Cassian watches everything that happens. He doesn't believe what just happened. He shouts out his friend's name, then finds himself kneeling next to his friend's lifeless body. The killer, meanwhile, jumps onto the roof, starting to run away. This is noticed by the hero, who immediately rushes in pursuit. It's already night outside. Stars have appeared in the dark sky, and the crescent moon lights up the area. Lee drives the killer to the edge of a cliff. He is trying to find out the reason for what is happening. The hero assumes that this is revenge, or that someone hired an unknown person to kill Jeff. However, the guy quickly comes to his senses, realizing that he doesn't need a reason. He clenches his fists in anger, and then a fire appears in his right hand. Cassian declares that the reasons don't matter, and that his enemy will die by his hand in any case right now. The unknown person pulls the mask off his face, noticing that the hero is also sharp-tongued. He calls him by his first name. This causes confusion in the guy. Cassian recognizes the enemy. This is Jack Khaled. He belongs to the night class. The man has short hair in the form of a hedgehog on his head, sharp features, and a patch over the left eye. The hero mumbles insults in the direction of Jeff's killer. The guy is literally shaking with anger and hatred for the person standing in front of him. Jack, on the other hand, remains absolutely calm. He explains that he has eliminated the traitor to the organization. The hero does not believe Khaled's words, considering it nonsense. A girl appears from behind. She is a member of the organization. Her name is Leela. She confirms Jack's words, stating that Jeff killed a member of the organization. Cassian looks in disbelief at the girl, who, seeing the other's gaze, hastens to add that there were witnesses and evidence to prove Jeff's betrayal. Layla also says that Lampus confirmed everything and gave permission. The hero turns his gaze to Jack, who asks him not to get involved in this case, otherwise he may be considered a traitor. Khaled demands that Cassian tell him everything he knows about what happened. He wants to know everything Jeff has told him. There's an awkward silence. The hero is surrounded on both sides. Jack is looking at him from the front, and Leela is curled up behind him, ready to use her power of cold. Cassian exhales heavily, preparing to make a responsible decision. The guy notes that in all the 10 years that his friend was a psyker, he did not kill a single person. It is precisely because of this that Lai doesn't believe the words of the two people surrounding him. The guy notes that the murder of a colleague by Jeff sounds very unrealistic. Leela claims that there are 2 other high-class psykers nearby. Jack also urges the guy to act like a real psyker, that is, to be more reasonable. He warns that this is Cassian's last chance. The hero sharply grins in the face of the interlocutor. He admits that Jack is right, noting that since he is a psyker, he should act like a psyker, that is, rationally and calmly. These words surprise both present. The hero declares that he will kill everyone present. He takes off at Jack. A fire ignites in his hands. He's preparing to use his power. The man makes a retaliatory lunge. In the instant before the collision, he draws his weapon, making a swing. Cassian moves away from the katana's blade, delivering his own punch. Khaled covers herself with her free hand. From a powerful contact, both fly off in different directions. Lila didn't waste any time. She closed in on Lee with a jump. The girl is going to end the guy with one blow. Cassian takes the cold blow on himself, responding with a wave of fire. Layla breaks the distance, and the guy rushes to her, about to continue the attack, but something hits him in the stomach, pierces him through. Layla grins, and the hero falls to his knees. He presses a hand to his bleeding side, mentally noting that the girl must be a sniper. Layla again demands the guy to surrender. If Cassian doesn't obey, the psyker pair will have to eliminate him. An insult escapes the boy's lips. It focuses a huge amount of energy in your hands. This is noticed by Jack, but he does not have time to warn his partner. The hero releases a powerful stream of fire towards the enemies. This ability is called Hellfire. It wasn't easy for Cassian to use such a powerful attack like that. He had already realized that he would not emerge victorious from this fight. He ran off in the opposite direction, then jumped off the cliff into the water. The guy hopes to get even with the opponents at the next meeting. Then another bullet hits the hero. It pleases right in the chest. A blood clot shoots out of Lee's mouth. The hero swears. The situation is terrible. It falls into the water from a decent height. Huge stones fly behind him, each of which is capable of killing a normal person. And on the cliff itself, a powerful explosion occurs. The guy falls into the water, sinking to the bottom. Cassian is unable to resist his drowning, but he refuses to die because he has a purpose in life. He still hadn't avenged his friend. The locket that Jeff gave him lights up, as if he's woken up from a long sleep. The hero is enveloped in darkness. The events take place in the men's room. Someone calls out to the guy. Voices behind him notice that the person is no longer breathing. A schoolboy put his head in the toilet. The second voice notices that the guy has already died. And the third student is horrified by what is happening, offering to run away. The hooligans run away, and the hero pulls water out of the toilet. He is very surprised by everything that is happening. He doesn't really know where he is or what happened to him. Chapter 2. The action takes place in the men's room. The hero looks around, remembering what happened recently. He remembers falling off a cliff and then being swallowed up by darkness. He's trying to figure out where he is, so Cassian. He comes out of the booth. Lee notices that he has a strange voice. He goes to the mirror and sees an unfamiliar face. The guy touches his face, then realizes with horror that the person in the mirror is him. He tries to deny what is happening, considering it impossible. The hero does not understand why he looks like a teenager and why his body is younger. He turns on the tap and washes his face with water from it, thinking that everything that is happening is a dream, and now he will wake up. Cassian lets out a heavy breath, then straightens his hair. He looks up at the mirror, but nothing has changed. He curses inwardly. He wants to understand what is happening, because he can't understand how it happened. A blow to the head interrupts his thoughts. The hero's head is hit by the memories of the owner of the body. He was a quiet guy who was relatively new to school. He was bullied by bullies, which eventually led to an unfortunate incident. The guy's name was Kwon Kanwoo. He lives in Korea. While the hero tries to understand what happened and how other people's memories ended up in his head, the necklace begins to glow again. An otherworldly voice addresses the guy by his real name. Noting that he has woken up, Cassian starts looking around for the owner of the voice. He wants to know who contacted him. An eye-like spirit appears from the necklace around his neck. It shimmers with black and blue colors. It turns out that this is a very ancient noble spirit named Moros. Cassian, startled, turns to the other person in Chi, noticing that he got out of the necklace. This displeases Moros, who immediately corrects him. The ancient spirit sees that the guy has a lot of questions that he wants to get answers to. The hero goes out into the courtyard of the school. He sits down on a bench and communicates with Moros. The ancient spirit is a little stressed by the fact that it takes so long for Cassian to realize the fact of his rebirth in a new body, but he notes that the hero quickly mastered Korean. Lee also admits that he was alive in Korea before being adopted in the United States. It is very difficult for a guy to accept the fact of his rebirth, because everything that happens comes down to the delirium of a madman. Moros also reminds that Jeff did not easily give the necklace to the guy. With this action, the man wanted to protect a loved one. It's hard for Cassian to accept. He thinks back to the last conversation he had with his friend, and somewhere in his gut, he knows it's probably true. Having collected his thoughts, the hero again asks the ancient spirit. This time, his question is about what Jeff was looking for. It's some kind of ancient iron sword. Moros says that this is about the Sword of Destruction, which was made in the era of myths. The hero also expresses doubts about the knowledge of the interlocutor. He doesn't believe Moros knows what was done so long ago. Even the argument that Moros is an ancient spirit doesn't convince the guy, so Moros just shuts Cassian up, telling him to keep quiet and listen if he doesn't know something. This angers the hero a little, so he notices that he has no reason to believe Moros, and he doesn't really need it. The ancient spirit claims to be a victim, as it had to spend half of its power in order to get rid of it. Revive the guy. Lee just grins at the words. He focuses his attention on the phone screen. Cassian goes to the news, where he learns information about himself and Jeff. This puts the hero in shock. He starts reading the news post nervously. It turns out that LAMP has officially announced the successful completion of an operation to eliminate a well-known psyker who was convicted of participating in black traffic and money laundering. The hero was accused of engaging in black traffic, but the next news was finishing. It said that first-class psyker Jeff Malik was killed by the hero during his detention. Memories of his good days with Jeff come flooding back to Cassian. He grits his teeth in anger, knowing full well that he would never have killed him. Before him comes an epiphany, because the lamp has accused him of all the deadly sins. The hero notices that he tried his best to protect people, and in the end he only received a stab in the back. Moros is nervous. He urges the guy to calm down. New energy begins to envelop the guy. He doesn't understand what's going on. One eye changes color to a bright blue. Blue lightning strikes all over the guy's body, and his arm covers a dense layer of dark blue energy. Instead of fingers, claws appear on it. This surprises Cassian. He doesn't understand what's going on. It turns out that both of Lee's hands are covered by a dense layer of energy. He stares at his hands in disbelief, trying to understand what's going on. Meanwhile, the trio of hooligans is standing in an alley. They're waiting for someone. One of them is already running out of patience, but the more important one requires him to calm down. A fat guy with glasses resorts to the Trinity. As he moves towards them, the trio has time to notice the terrible shape of the body and the unsightly appearance of the schoolboy. The fat man claims that there was no one in the bathroom. The bullies ask the informer again. One of them even suggests that the police or ambulance should have been there, but the informer reports that there is no one there. One of the bullies starts hitting on the other, telling him that he said that the guy died and that he was not breathing. Badass recalls recent events. He definitely remembers that the guy wasn't breathing. Boss passes the payment to the fat man, telling him to calm down. The bully continues to run over the guilty comrade, already raising the question of trust. The head teacher orders the students to finish this discussion. It doesn't matter to him whether the guy is there or not, because in any case, he wants to find him and finish him off. Chapter 3. The hero tries to catch his breath, leaning on the wall of the house. The ancient spirit also condemns the guy for the fact that he decided to run away from everyone, retreating to the roofs. Cassian tries to shut up the other man. He wants to know why he became the villain. Moros admits that he is already beginning to regret his decision, but the spirit still gives an answer to the question posed. It turns out that Lee's fate has changed. He managed to die and be reborn again, but the owner of the body was destined to awaken as a villain. Ancient Spirit notes, this guy's abilities have huge disastrous consequences. Cassian stops the other's explanation. He decides to clarify one detail that he really cares about. Moros only confirms his fear. Lee, having been reborn in the body of a guy, not only took over the body itself, but also its fate. The very fact of what is happening makes the guy laugh, because the psyker of the highest class eventually became a villain with huge capabilities. Cassian gets even angrier. He becomes hysterical, and in a fit of anger, he slams his hand against the wall, leaving a huge dent. He is angry at the fate that has befallen him. The hero doesn't understand why Moros decided to revive him in the first place. The Ancient Spirit also calls the guy to control. He reminds Cassian of what he knows. Villains are driven by their desires. Moros makes it clear to the hero that this is exactly what is happening to him right now. Right now, there is evil itself inside Lee. The Ancient Spirit claims that it is now helping to restrain this evil guy. But if he continues to get angry, the evil inside him will become stronger and then the inevitable will happen. Cassian shuts him up. He sinks into despair because he simply does not see his further path. Lee covers his face with demonic hands as he sits on the floor. Moros also gives him a goal: it's to survive. The Ancient Spirit claims that Jeff would have said so, too. Cassian, on the other hand, looks at the other person with incomprehension, thinking that he did not know his friend at all. Moros also explains that he was in contact with Jeff. They were talking about Lee. The man was very sorry that he had to involve a loved one in this matter, even standing on the edge of a precipice. Jeff wasn't going to save himself. All he wanted was to give Cassian a chance to survive. That was the last wish Jeff had ever had, according to Moros. The Ancient Spirit continues to give advice. He says that the hero needs to learn to control himself. This is starting to infuriate Cassian, but Moros takes a different approach to the question. He reminds the guy that without control, he won't be able to take on human form. Lee is forced to agree. The hero again turns to the Ancient Spirit without respect, so he has to correct the guy who still managed to take a human form. To Cassian, it becomes interesting to know who the other person is. He wants to know what the Ancient Noble Spirit means. Moros is a little surprised that the guy is finally interested. Lee explains his interest by saying that since his interlocutor knows how to enliven people, it is worth getting to know him better. Moros also sets conditions. The hero only learns about this after finding the sword. The hero considers this thing to be a simple piece of metal. He asks the other person if the sword has anything to do with Jeff's murder. This time, the Ancient Spirit doesn't know the exact answer, but somehow it's sure that it's relevant. At this point, the conversation between the hero and Moros is interrupted by a trio of hooligans. Their leader is happy that the guy is alive, but a grin appears on his face, which does not bode well. Meanwhile, a guy with red hair and a confident look is walking down the hallways of the school. The girls say that he is very handsome and has a good physique. The guy is a psyker trainee. His name is Kim Woo-chang. The guy gets a phone call from a certain Lee Dune. The future psyker picks up the phone. He looks out of the window, which has a view of the neighboring roof. He sees a trio of schoolboys about to do something bad to a guy. Kim tells the girl that he will call back, and then goes to the next roof. Meanwhile, on the roof, the trio stand a few steps away from Cassian, who isn't the least bit afraid of them. The hero recalls that this trinity flashed in the memories of the former owner of the body. Moros points out that only Cassian can see it. The blonde guy starts the conversation. He admits that he was afraid of going to jail because of the hero's dead calf. The main one among the hooligans carefully takes out one cigarette from the pack. He notes that Kwon Kanwoo really pisses him off. The bully doesn't understand why the guy didn't come to them right away if he didn't die. He also notices that Kwon is acting weird. He assumes that the guy walks on the roofs to hide from them. Cassian directly asks who the other person is. This greatly surprises the Trinity. Lee claims that he is not in the mood, and he does not like to hit children, but in this situation he is ready to teach them a lesson for educational purposes. Moros also reminds that even without transformation, villains have enormous physical strength, which is several times greater than that of any human. The Ancient Spirit is afraid that the guy will lose control. Cassian, on the other hand, is well aware of this. A hooligan blonde approaches the hero. He demands that he repeat his last words. He thinks the guy's gone completely head over heels. Kwon and the hooligan's eyes touch. The bully doesn't see any fear in the boy's eyes. Lee is absolutely confident in his actions. It pisses the blonde off. The bully raises his hand, intending to prescribe a juicy bream to the hero, but Cassian strikes first. The fist hits the bully's cheek. This instantly knocks the boy out, and the remaining two look on in disbelief at everything that is happening. The chief of the hooligans doesn't understand why Squishy has so much power. The second member of the gang of hooligans can't stand it. He takes off, preparing to finish Cassian off. The bully brings the bat to strike on the move, but Lee is completely calm. There's determination and confidence in his eyes. When the bully is already a step away from the blow, preparing to end everything, the hero takes a step forward, taking a blow with an iron bat on the block of his left hand. Then, with absolute calm, he responds with a straight right. The fist hits the boy squarely in the jaw. The bat flies off in one direction, and the guy goes to his friend. The leader of the gang is amazed at what is happening. His shock is so great that the cigarette falls out of his mouth. He notices that Squishy has taken down 2 of them in one fell swoop. The hero also asks the only opponent standing on his feet how his conscience does not gnaw at his rotten deeds. The main bully starts sweating, not knowing how to answer this question. Cassian notices this. Everything that happens only warms up the interest of the boss of hooligans. He grins, grinning in the hero's face. The bully admits that he does not know what conscience is at all. He claims to have skewered everything, and a conscience on its own dignity. Cassian's questions only make the badass leader laugh more. The bully's boss says he's going to hit Lee anyway. The hero begins to realize that his interlocutor really has no conscience. Then he notices that if there is no such important attribute of a person, then it must be awakened. The aura around the hero becomes belligerent, after which he assures that his fist will help the bully awaken his conscience. Chapter 4. This time, the hero himself breaks away from the place in the direction of the enemy. The leader of the hooligans takes a defensive stance, preparing to counterattack. Cassian dodges the first blows of the opponent, then carries out a powerful kick to the jaw. This disorientates the badass, but the hero doesn't stop there. It adds a punch to the stomach, knocking all the air out of the enemy's lungs. The bully falls to the floor, holding his stomach. He tries to catch his breath while Lee asks him if he has a conscience. After receiving an insult in response, the hero lifts the gang leader by his clothes. He assumes that the blow is not strong enough, so he wants to repeat it. Both present look around. Kim Woo-chang calmly watches the 2 students, asking them what they are doing. A cold sweat runs down the bully's face.